icon in the Denver restaurant scene, Nelson Perkins, chef owner of Colt and Gray, St. Ellie's, Beyond, again, iconic restaurants in the Denver scene, and formerly of those restaurants, because you did actually shut those down, which we're going to talk about a little bit, but we were joking about this. You've basically been knighted because you had restaurants existing in the same location continuously for over a decade, which is basically like being knighted or a unicorn simultaneously. So I really appreciate you taking some time to talk with us.
It's my pleasure, Jensen.
All right, so let's take people back, because you did shut down your restaurants in December and had an amazing run, and what a challenge that is to go through the process of creating something from nothing and employing thousands of people and all the accolades and getting to cook and express yourself and show that passion, create experiences and memories. And I remember I had a New Year's Eve at St. Ellie's, you know, and that I'll never forget that. I'll never forget drinking a magnum of whatever we were drinking. It'll last with me forever. So you created a lot of those moments, but you did shut it down. So take us back to that. And then I want to kind of like talk about your perspective, having a little bit more perspective than some of the restaurateurs currently, and kind of like what you see happening now. But take us back to that process of saying goodbye to your baby.
Yeah, we announced at the beginning of December that we would do our last Drink the Bar Dry. We would close down on December 21st. Part of that was to let people know, but part of it was also to let the staff know and give them a chance. We had a lot of parties booked, and I felt obliged. We probably should have closed down earlier, but it was time. We were having troubles renegotiating our lease. We'd been through 3 years of construction down in the neighborhood. We lost our parking. It didn't look like signing another 10-year lease was a smart or sustainable thing to do. But again, I wanted to kind of follow through on the obligations, and I wanted to get that last Drink the Bar Dry party in and make sure everybody got a chance to celebrate what we did at Colt and Gray, which I think Kevin Burke, bartender or bar manager, I think now at Morin, put it best. He said, you know what, we throw a dinner party every night, and that really was our goal. And it was the most brutal thing I've ever gone through in my life. I love it. Those places are all named after my children, except for Beyond. And it was a passion that literally kind of strangely came about. And before I knew it, I'd opened a restaurant, and then I'd expanded a restaurant, and people seemed to like us. And it just sort of, I was very passionate about the people, about the building. There wasn't any part of it. Well, there were parts of it I didn't like, but I really it was like having another child, and all the people who worked there were very loyal and kind and good people. I think the restaurant, I think people are starting to see it now, but that understand that people who work in restaurants aren't just kind of washed up or don't have another option. They're people who actually love hospitality. Those who are good at them. And they love throwing that dinner party every night. And I think people are finally starting to realize that and starting to miss them. It's unfortunate that it took COVID to make that happen. But we knew it pretty much from day one those were the people who made it click. And you found the right people who had your same philosophy of hospitality. All of a sudden it became something special.
Yeah, and being able to galvanize that many people to create those kind of experiences, that is an unbelievably difficult feat to accomplish at any moment, let alone to sustain for over a decade. And so, appreciate that and how hard that is. I also know that, having shut down my own restaurants before, and how much of like a painful part of the process it is. And at the same time, there's like that moment of relief where you just knew that like it wasn't right for one reason or the other, whatever that is. And so did you also feel that throughout this, as hard as that is and as strange as that is, even though you're so committed to it?
The moment I walked out the door that night, I wasn't sure what actually that whole day, I wasn't really sure what my emotions were going to be. And like I said, that the last 3 weeks, we lost one person, and I worked the line the last 3 weeks, which really helped. It kept me working and kept my mind off of it. I wasn't just out talking to people. And but there was definitely, I walked out the door and I kind of went, it sucks, but it's over. That part of my life, I don't know what's next. I still have weeks or months of cleanup and financial cleanup and things to deal with, but the decision is made and now it's official. The doors are closed. I mean, you love it, but it is so much work, and it is just mentally and emotionally exhausting, being the chef owner of a restaurant. You're responsible for so many people's lives, and the product that goes out the door, and it wipes you out.
Yeah. And you said mentally and emotionally, it's easy to think about the long days being physically draining, but it is the mental and the emotional part that is absolutely unrelenting pressure on that part of your being. So appreciate that. You're on the line the last couple of weeks. You still got it?
Yeah. All the guys said they went in skeptically. They tried to throw me on garde manger, and I'm like, no. I'm working hot side. I got this. And yeah, it was, I didn't screw up too much, and and I didn't fall over, and I didn't burn myself in 3 weeks. I was like, that's an accomplishment. Just as a cook, that's almost inevitable that you're going to do that.
Yeah,
or cut
myself off the course. I appreciate that, and thinking about now this moment, and then contextualizing what you just said. For me personally, cooking is so therapy like it's never been before. It was always a hustle. It was always like I had swagger. I was good at it. I could deliver the pressure, all those kind of things. Right now, like putting on earbuds, listening to Kitchen Confidential, and cooking a 4-gallon batch of Thai curry is the most therapeutic thing that I could ever imagine. So I bet for you, knowing the inevitability of what was happening, it felt very pure, I'm guessing.
It felt right. It felt like that's the way it was supposed to end. It was like, what, this is where I started. This is where it should end. And now, I'm cooking for my in-laws and my family dinner every night, like everybody else eating in. And so it's even that at the end of the day, after I've finished a day of work, I really look forward to getting back into the kitchen, whether I'm making meatloaf or whether I'm making Thai curry or whatever I'm doing. It's just like, okay, I'm back at home.
Yeah. And do you see that now as there is a simplification happening with our restaurants, some of it being a forced simplification for sure. You kind of saw the trends of the simplification. It happened in 2008, crystal and white tablecloths went away. Right. And, you had background in New York. You saw that really play out in places like New York, less so in Denver that maybe didn't have a lot of that. Then you saw the emergence of exactly kind of what you were doing, being really at the forefront of these chef-driven, farm to table, nose to tail, all of these different type endeavors. Now it's become even simpler. When you think about that, where's your head at as far as that? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you resentful because maybe part of that took away from what you were doing? Give me some perspective there.
I'm not resentful. I wish I'd moved that direction at some point. And I think that's, that trend has been around forever. You get these amazing New York chefs, and then they open a burger, and that's where they make all the for me, I think the biggest mistake, again, although I love them all equally like my children, was probably opening Beyond in St. Ellie. I should have at that point probably opened somewhere else, another concept, and it could have been Beyond in St. Ellie, but somewhere else, and just to diversify it a little bit. But the opportunity was there, and I just kind of grabbed it and sort of thought like, oh, here's my little kingdom. So I understand it, and I think financially, it's become as necessary as it has become any kind of necessarily food trend. I think the economy, through wages and insurance and rents and all the other things that go on, have pushed us to the point where we have to figure out a way to make if we want to express ourselves through food, we have to figure out a way to do it less expensively, and changing in dining habits as well. Whether you want to blame millennials or whoever you want to, it's just it is what it is. And there's really good food coming out of these places that are making simple food and simplifying. Mostly they're shrinking their menus and they're going very specific. And I think it's a wise thing to do, to start there as opposed to say, oh, okay, let's open this great white tablecloth fine dining place and then we'll build our brand.
Right. Yeah, I think, again, there's this contradiction, this polarizing thing pulling at me, the industry, so many people that I talk to, is we started hype chasing a lot. Oh, who's going to be the next taco joint, the burger joint, the ramen joint, the this, that, and the other. And there was not a lot of substance in a lot of it. At the same time, the fact that I know people that can open a Filipino restaurant, to me, that is their culture, is the most amazing thing that could ever happen in this moment when it comes to culinary. So again, it's like you have to take the good with the bad in those moments. And like the fact that you can have chicken adobo from somebody whose grandmother taught them this recipe, that there is no higher level of food service that you could ever imagine. And at the same time, just the next like robo put into a box ramen concept that I want to gouge my fucking eyeballs out when I taste it. It just
I totally agree. The fact that there is an amazing long-lived taco joint on San Diego for a James Beard Award is amazing. And those guys, those restaurants, those families who built their businesses deserve it. When you get into guys, and I was never, I didn't know enough about chasing awards. I worked in New York for a little bit. I was a stockbroker before that. I didn't, I just followed a passion. I had no idea whether it was going to work or not. I knew what I thought was good food, and we got a lot of accolades and awards for it, but that was never my goal. It's like that's more with the family restaurant too, as opposed to there's a lot of chefs and a lot of different concepts that are trying to either A, just make money, or B, just awards.
Yeah, so you mentioned being a stockbroker. I was very interested in that because I know you just thought about the restaurant as far as how you composed it from a business model differently. And I'm sure now you're thinking about it even differently, to the point you made, like you wish you had pivoted to that simpler model and all of that. Anyway, I want to have you kind of take a moment at a high level. We don't need to get into the weeds, but at a high level, thinking about now this added layer of pressure put onto the businesses themselves. What are some of the things that are top of mind for you when you're seeing restaurants right now and thinking about what has to happen next?
It's difficult because I had the advantage, and really the only advantage I had was that I knew how to read a financial statement, which a lot of chefs don't necessarily know. They're great chefs, but they don't necessarily know what how to financially take care of companies.
Right.
Right now, I just know how restaurants are going to reopen if they don't have a fairly substantial cash in the bank. Because I know even in our good, we will go week to week. It's just the margins are thin, and so I think the government's trying to help some of these with some of these programs, but when the PPP runs out of money, week into it, I think everybody else realizes how huge it is.
Yeah, I completely agree. So the simplification that we kind of talked about, and when you think about, you mentioned taxes and leases and all these different things, I'm interested in maybe thinking about the real estate side, the footprint Oh man, it's always something, man. Always something. This is funny. I don't even know what people could see when I got kicked off. Technology, man. It has been the beacon and the bane throughout all of this.
It really has.
I love it. People are going to message me and say, that was my favorite part of the show, where it just completely cut off. And all of a sudden it was like just real, because that's what everybody is going through right now, aren't they? So I don't even remember what we were talking about, but want to get your perspective maybe on, we talked about the business model, but when I heard you talking earlier, I was really interested in the people side of it. And I think that's the biggest thing right now, is like so many people are hurting. So many people are unsure what's happening and things like that. You had to go through that because you had to let an entire team of people know, like, you're going to have to figure something else out. And what were those conversations like? You know, like, how do people have those conversations right now in your mind?
You know, again, I think it's a different scenario, right? You know, we had, I would have argued one of the best teams we ever had right when we closed, which was heartbreaking to have to let them go. But I also knew, you know, again, I gave them 3 weeks and I said, you know, go find jobs. I'm here for you. I'll write you recommendations. You guys are good. And you know that. What's been more heartbreaking is, you know, since then, you know, I'm getting, these are all unemployment claims. So that same staff that was so good is now getting is now filing for unemployment. And you know what? They're good, smart, qualified people. And it sucks. It breaks my heart. And, you know, that's less than a week's. And I think there's 12 of them there. And I've been getting those for the last 2 weeks, you know, stacks like that. And, you know, I don't, you know, I think people are going to finally learn. I don't know how the industry is going to come back, but I think people are going to finally learn the trickle down effect of what restaurants do. Restaurants make nothing, but they spend a ton. So again, it's affecting wholesalers. It's affecting their employees. It's affecting landlords. It's affecting a huge portion of the economy. And it's not like we're investment bankers who are just sitting on a pile of cash. We're just like our employees. Restaurants are surviving week to week, and
paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, that interruption is so substantial and so brutal for the people who are in the industry.
Yeah, and so thinking about that, I mean, it truly, like, there's no money sitting in the bank in most of these restaurants, as we know. And so when I think about everybody just clamoring to try and get this $349 billion and navigate PPP and SBA and EIDL, and the CARES Act is even an acronym. I can't even keep track of all the acronyms. It drives me crazy, man. I don't know how you did, stockbroker. It must be why you left, because it makes me want to gouge my eyeballs out. But everyone's having to navigate that. And then I'm also fielding a lot when it comes to unemployment. We had the deputy executive director of the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment on the show and talking through all that. It's heavy. It's heavy for sure right now. And so you are still fielding unemployment things. And when you think about those restaurants getting back to work, and you hear things like the 3 phases and social distancing and how that's going to be ramped up and how you're going to ramp up with spending 75% of SBA. I'm rambling on purpose right now because this is what's going on in people's heads. Like, there is no clarity. There is no clear path. But having that financial background, I'm very interested, just like you've been able to pull pennies out of a slim margin type restaurant for a long time. Any words of wisdom or advice, or is it such a personal choice that there's just no way to give advice in this moment?
I mean, I think it is a very personal choice. I've talked to people that I consider to be some very successful restaurateurs, and they don't know. Far more successful than I. People who have multiple restaurants and have been doing it longer than I have, and they're just not sure. They're choosing what concept they're going to close, with pretty much the idea that they're probably going to at least close a few of their concepts. So, I do think, again, there's so much uncertainty, and I will tell you that that restaurant people are, if nothing, they're tenacious and they will do all they can to stay alive. And I guess my only advice was don't do it at the expense of your personal financial situation, because it's you want to be able to sleep at the end of the day. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And, down the road, there may be new opportunities. But, that's kind of, I guess, a little bit flippant sounds perhaps, but it's really not meant that way. It's just that there's so many questions. I don't know what the answers are going to be for most of these guys. And I don't think most of them, even the really good ones, just don't know what it's going to look like on the other side, let alone when the other side is going to actually occur. 2 weeks, another 2 weeks, it could be really tough. Another 4 weeks will be really, really tough. And you just don't know exactly what the plan is going to look like. I think having more information from all of the government sources would be really nice. And I understand they don't necessarily know. But the sooner that people can sort of come up with a plan, I think the sooner they're going to be better off one way or another, whether it's, look, we're closing this, keeping this. Like you've been through and I've been through, when you close a restaurant, sometimes there's a relief just knowing that it's happening.
Yeah, it truly is. Now I'm very interested, more perspective from you. You now are, you're a civilian. It's like you were in the paramilitary trooper, right? And now you're just a civilian. And even now you're with the in-laws in Florida, so you have some distance and perspective. So I'm interested, as a civilian, when you're thinking about going back to restaurants right now, are you gung-ho about it? Are you concerned? Do you want to just bring the family? Like, talk about that a little bit as somebody who isn't motivated by the banter of getting people back into your restaurant because you are fiscally tied to it, but rather as somebody who's a fan of restaurants or just, a potential patron.
I'm probably the least of a germaphobe of anyone. So okay. I've never really been, and I may be stupid, but again, we loaded our family onto a plane a month ago to come down for spring break, but we also knew that it was possible that this was going to blow up and we were going to stay here.
Yeah.
So I'm eager, and I'm I do encourage that the pace is taken at the pace that is required to be taken, but I don't know what that pace is. But as soon as restaurants open, I'm ready to go back. Right. What I don't want to see is this. I don't want to see I do want to see a bump, but I want that bump to be sustained so that I'm hoping that the restaurants that are still open, people really appreciate what they do and think about it more often about why they're going to a restaurant and what restaurant they're going to, and understanding the people that work there. A great anecdote: my father-in-law, we were going to just pick up some food here on the island, and it was literally 2 orders of chicken wings for my kids, which was maybe a total of $20. And my father-in-law said, "Here," gave my son $40 more and said, "Give that as a tip." Yeah. And you know what, that kind of attitude is, nobody in the restaurant business is necessarily looking for handouts. We love to work in that business. I've always said if you don't like being in the weeds, don't go into the restaurant business, because you have to love that. And I know you love it. That's what makes it. That's the day that you walk out of there and you're like, yeah, when it's slow, you're just like, bleh. But when you get crushed and you work your butt off and you're sweaty and tired, that's the best days you have. And that's what these people want to get back to, is that, they want to be in the weeds, but they want to have some security.
Yeah, I think on both sides of the equation, the thoughtfulness that's going to go into that, I'm hoping goes into the decisions that we make as an internal and external guest, is going to be important, because there's definitely those moments, and we've seen it, and we've been in those places where somehow it's like they act like their guests are lucky to be here, and now is a moment where you have no guests. All you have is the community that you've built, the people that you have, and that expression that is put through the foods or the drinks. And so that part of the simplification of it, I am excited about, because I'm hoping we become more thoughtful and reflective on both sides, thinking about where we go and thinking about who we are in that moment for our internal and external guests. And so I can definitely appreciate that.
I think that's a great point. Is this is a great opportunity for the restaurants to become better also. Because we've all been in a restaurant when it's been kind of, the staff just doesn't feel it and they're not into it for whatever reason. And hopefully both sides gain some appreciation for each other. I've been known to complain about customers, and I've known to complain about restaurants and servers. Everybody's trying, but if everybody's really trying and being considerate of each other, then I think the whole thing is going to work out better.
Yeah, I mean, this is the very nucleus of this show. I started it. I myself was guilty of getting so caught up in what we do and how we do it, and thinking that was our competitive advantage and our point of differentiation, yet come to realize that why and who is way more important than what and how. And so why we do what we do and who it is that we serve and who's in the trenches, who's gotten you to that point, like that is what really matters. And that's the only conversations we can really have, is that level of depth, because the relationships are the only thing that we have right now when you don't have a restaurant. So yeah. So I really appreciate that. Nelson, I mean, great catching up with you again. Like the memories that I have thinking back of Colt and Gray will always be with me, which is why you will always be the chef owner of Colt and Gray. And I think that's an important thing to distinguish for people, that it really, really matters. And so, I remember those moments like they were yesterday, and I will forever. And that's what a restaurant is. That is it. That is the only thing. And here's the funny thing about it. I have joked about the magnum of whatever champagne we had that night, but I remember Kevin Burke, and I remember Ryan Leonin and Kyle and all these different people that were like a part of that full journey for you guys. I remember all those people more than anything. So I really appreciate that. Give us some playlist items. What are a couple things that, as you're on the island, as you say, that are keeping those moments of levity going for you and the family?
Reading a lot.
Yeah, good.
I just finished a book, which it's called Killers of the Flower Moon. Amazing book. It's a true story about an Indian tribe, and basically they keep getting moved around, and they end up in Oklahoma, and they end up at a certain moment in time being the richest group of people in the world because they discovered oil. But then there's a whole bunch of murders and things that happen. It's very interesting. It's a great book. And then, when I'm down here, I'm working, I'm fishing when I can with the kids. We play cards. List as far as music, Zach Brown, Lyle Lovett are always on my playlist. Nice. And then, again, being in Florida, we go with some cheesy yacht rock every now and then, just to, as a tribute to Kevin Burke, and just to lighten things up a little bit.
You said you were working a little bit. I did want to touch on this for just a moment, and then I'll let you go. But you contacted me because you guys are compiling a list to connect people with the vendor side, and we bantered a little bit about farmers and the different purveyors that right now are hurting as well, and trying to thoughtfully, again, curate some of the products from the people that are out there still for you. So mention what that is quickly, and I wanted to link that up because I do think that's a valuable resource.
Yeah, I'm working for a company called Wholesale out of the Bay Area, and really what we do is our goal is to help purveyors kind of simplify their entire accounts receivable, and on that side also, helping restaurants to a certain extent with their simplifying their accounts payable. What we really came into the same period sort of as everybody else, where we couldn't really do business, just like the restaurants couldn't do business. And so people much smarter than me, figured out ways that we could get out there and try and help wholesalers. And so when I contacted you, it was really about making a list, and I think you're going to post the website. And we made lists both in the Bay Area and in Denver of wholesalers who were going direct to customer. Also some interviews on there with wholesalers and kind of what they're going through as well. Because as I said, it all flows through. If the farmer, If the restaurant can't sell food, then the wholesaler can't sell food, and the farmer can't sell food, and it trickles down. And so it's not just, I empathize with restaurants because I understand that business, but I also understand the wholesale relationship. And as you do, you know, when you have a great wholesaler, it can really make your restaurant. And so, you know, we need to try and keep those guys afloat too, so that when this all passes, you know, the restaurants have somebody to buy food from.
Yeah, it's so important. And you mentioned just the macroeconomics of it, how many industries the restaurant industry flows through, and we're going to see that play out for sure, because as far as the economic impact, we've barely scratched the surface on it, let alone getting people back to work and the mental health and the businesses themselves and all these different things at play. So I appreciate that we're coming from it from all angles. And so I think that's going to be important to continue to support the entire ecosystem, because we need it. Nelson Perkins, my friend, very good catching up with you.
Thanks, Jensen. If you ever need me back, let me know.
I will absolutely do that. And have fun with the family out there. You have earned it, my friend. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah, biggest takeaway, Nelson Perkins will always, for me and for thousands of others, be the chef owner of Colt & Gray in Denver, Colorado. So that is an important distinction. It was very interesting because before this, we were just talking about that a little bit. It's like, hey, I've been calling you the chef owner of Colt & Gray. Is that still what you are? And it was very emphatic. I am. And I was like, you're right. In my mind, you are and always will be. And that is something that's something important for the restaurant industry, that it's timeless. No matter what, the impact that you have, as fleeting as it may be, is everlasting to a lot of individual people that worked within that industry. And the amount of talented people that have come out of that system and done their own things and been amazing and gone deeper into the industry or out of the industry, it doesn't matter. It matters. It matters. Like, it doesn't matter where they go, but it matters that they were there in that time and had that impact on so many people. So I really appreciate that. That's why I wanted to have Nelson on to talk about that and give those perspectives. So grateful for that. And thank you, everybody who actually did watch through the mayhem of technology, literally just vanished from my screen. It's par for the course, people. Technology has been the beacon and the bane, like I said, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I can talk to Nelson, who's in Florida, and stream this out to people that I see watching from all over the country. So I'm grateful. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to talk a little bit outside of the industry, because we have Julia June on, who is part of the Flatirons Food Film Festival, which will be premiering next weekend. They're based in Colorado. And I want to watch some things that make me inspired about food and about people who create food and who tell stories about food, with food, through food, all of it. So we're going to have Julia on tomorrow, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And tonight we'll release the full roster of guests for this week. Amazing lineup. Appreciate you. Have a great one.